Are you still cutting the slots on your guitar nut the same old-fashioned way? If so, today's video is for you. This tool I'm going to show you is a game changer. One thing I've always struggled with on my guitars when doing setups is getting the nut slots cut just right. Not too deep, not too shallow, so that the guitar feels and plays properly. This is always the most challenging aspect of any guitar setup. And I believe it's the single most important thing in a guitar's feel. Now, till today, people use a variety of methods to do this. Some of them can work well, some of them leave a little to be desired, but there hasn't been a universal method to accurately measure the space between the bottom of your string and the top of your fret accurately and affordably. Today I want to show you a really cool tool that looks very simple, but it's quite powerful. This tool is going to be a game changer. So I recently picked up this tool and I wasn't quite sure if it would do the job for me. So I wanted to show you how I use it to make nut slotting easier than the method that I used to use. Properly set up slots on your nut are critical for the playability of your guitar. I can't stress that enough. People often look to other aspects of the guitar setup to figure out why the guitar doesn't feel like it plays well. But oftentimes there are issues that happen right up here at the nut, and inconsistent nut slot depths for your guitar will make the guitar not play optimally. So you want to ensure that all of the slots are cut accurately for the type of frets that you're using so that you don't have issues with buzzing or notes that are basically going sharp when you press down on the strings here. Now, in the past, people would use various methods to be able to measure and get a good idea of how deep the slots needed to be cut. One method that is commonly used is by using something like this. This is a set of feeler gauges. And in the past, what you would do would be you would slide a feeler gauge underneath the string here, determine how much space you want to have underneath your strings. I'm just using a random number of feeler gauge here. I'm not doing this accurately by any means. I'm just trying to describe how it's normally done. Then once you had that number in mind, say you wanted to go with 0.004, you would stack up your feeler gauges, include the 0.4, so that you can clear the height of the fret and make sure that you had that space accurately measured there. And again, I'm just doing this eyeball. I'm not being accurate. I'm just showing you the technique. Then you would push it over to the nut. You would scribe a line, and that line would end up being your safety line. In other words, you would continue by cutting the slots down to that line, which, if you calculated your heights properly, would clear the fret. And that's one way of doing it. Is it accurate? Somewhat. Yes, you can still mess up your nut slot. Is it easy? Not always. You have to have good technique. You have to know what you're doing and take your time. Now, another way people would do this in the past was eyeball it. So they would just basically start cutting the slot, and they would just cut it down, fret the string, and then tap the string here at the first fret to see if they can hear the click and determine how much space you had under each string. You can also try visualizing that with your eyes. Very tricky to do, not always accurate, easy to overshoot your measurement and ruin your nut and then have to start over again. So all of these methods are being used even today, but there's perhaps a better way. And today I'm going to show you that way. And going back to the nut slot gauge that I showed you at the beginning of this video, I think this tool is so simple and so straightforward that it makes the whole process rather easy. And you don't have to worry about, having good eyes or good technique. It kind of takes the guesswork out of things. So I'm going to show you exactly how this works. Now, first off, you'll notice there's a series of numbers here. We have 1, 5, 8, and 3. Each of these numbers represent a little notch that is carved out of the edge of this ruler, if you want to call it that, or gauge. 0 is completely flat. 5 represents a 0.005 check here. 3 is 0.003. And 8 is 0.008. These are basically the same kind of measurements you would get with your feeler gauge in thousandths of an inch. So how does this work? Let's say you want to pull out the string here and examine this slot, right? What would we do here? Well, we can start off by taking this, and let's say we want to measure and see if it's got a tolerance of 0.005 on the fret. So what we do is we put it in the slot. We'll take this, slide it towards the bridge, and as we do that, we would listen. As you slide it over the nut, and it clears the nut, if you don't hear anything, it means that your slot is pretty much level with 0.005. If you take 0.03 tolerance and do the same thing and listen, if you hear a little click there, it means that the nut now is slightly higher than 0.003. So by doing that, we can deduce that the slot is between 0.3, where we heard the click, and 0.5, where we didn't hear any click. That would be 0.004. So we pretty much determined that this spacing between the bottom of the nut slot and the top of your fret would be 0.004. It's as simple as that. And you can go by sound. You don't have to worry about having good eyesight or anything like that. And by doing it this way, it's so straightforward. You can do the whole nut in a matter of minutes, and you can determine where each one of those frets is too low or too high. You can shave just a little bit more off of that slot, and then have your guitar playing perfectly well with perfect slots, and you will feel the difference in the guitar, guaranteed. So this is something that simplified the entire process for me. It's made it rather easy to do, and it's a tool that I throw in my toolbox and have at arm's reach anytime I'm setting up my guitars. I encourage you guys to check it out and see whether or not it could work for you. There you go, folks. I'm always happy to share a great, inexpensive tool. I think this one should definitely be in everyone's toolbox. If you're setting up your guitars and you're cutting your nut slots, you want to make sure they're as accurate as possible. And this really does make things a whole lot easier. I encourage you guys to try it out for yourself. Give me your feedback on it. Maybe you guys have some better way of doing it, but so far, I like this tool and it's made my life so much easier. Check it out, leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. More great tips coming right here on Addicted to Gear.